Welcome to Hockey Nights in Vegas, episode 69. Nothing further really needs to be said. My name is Eddie Rivkin. I'm joined as always by Chris Chapman of Fox Sports Las Vegas. These episodes are all brought to you by the Las Vegas Advisor and Dr. John Pierce at www.agelessforever.net. Chap, we're on a bit of a time crunch, so let's get right into it. The big story in the NHL, nice guy Morgan Reilly almost decapitates a rookie for taking a big slapper into an empty net. The side note, it's the Ottawa-Toronto rivalry. Two teams that hate each other. Tons of Toronto fans in the crowd in Ottawa. The young kid's a rookie. There's a whole bunch of different opinions about code and things like that. So before we talk about what other people said, what do you think of the 5-game suspension that the NHL levied to Morgan Reilly for cross-checking that young fella right in the kisser?
Well, I thought it was fair. Morgan Reilly is a guy who doesn't have a reputation of being a dirty player. I don't think he's a guy who goes around intentionally looking to hurt people. I think it was I think the problem is it was one of those things that Morgan Reilly has been taught by coaches and by veteran players, I think is evidenced by the comments made by some of the former players on Twitter and other social media on, Toronto television, Toronto radio, and then comments by pundits in Toronto. Personally, I think the code thing is bullshit. Like, you know what? I don't fucking care how the guy scored an empty net goal. Morgan Reilly was lollygagging his ass back to try to stop Greig from scoring the goal. The only time he really put his foot on the gas was after Greig scored the goal, quote, showing them up. I mean, you don't want that to happen, then don't give up four goals to the Ottawa Senators and then the empty net goal. Don't lose the season series to the Ottawa Senators. I think it was more a case of Morgan Reilly just being frustrated with A, them losing the game, and B, the way the season's going in Toronto, because as it stands right now, they're no lock to make the playoffs. I think they're safe, but there's no guarantee. And Morgan Reilly, he missed his first game last night. By the way, the first game he'll play after the suspension is here in Vegas. So for those Golden Knight fans who will be in attendance, make sure you welcome him back in the most Vegas way possible, I guess.
And wear a helmet with a full face shield because you never know when you might get
crossed. Yeah. But I mean, honestly, I don't dislike Morgan Reilly. I don't think he's a guy who's going to go around and make a reputation of doing stupid things like this. But let's be honest, it was a stupid thing in a moment of frustration in a game they lost to a team they shouldn't be losing to. And he happened to be the guy there. I mean, I don't know if any other, I mean, not that Austin Matthews would be back checking, but I don't know. Yeah. So like, yeah, that guy. Yeah. So I don't know if someone else on the Toronto roster would have done the same thing. I imagine they probably would have. It just happened to be Morgan Reilly was the guy that was there.
Well, you didn't really leave a lot of room for discussion, but I'll take a couple of shots at it. First thing is, this is Morgan Reilly's first offense. He's never been suspended. He's not, I don't know, pick your villain. Brad Marchand, apparently Trouba. Yeah, Trouba from the Rangers who racks up some suspensions. But that hit was really, really egregious. And, there's this penalty. I can't remember there's a penalty for intent to injure in one of the major sports. And clearly he was trying to send a message. And everything you said is right. Don't give up 4 goals to a really shitty Ottawa club, right? Don't take a nice leisurely skate to the red line, and when the guy pumps in a clapper from 18 feet, decide that you have to be the judge, jury, and executioner of, don't you embarrass us, rookie. I think 5 games wasn't enough. I mean, and we'll go back to Trouba in New York swinging his stick at somebody and getting a $5,000 fine. And we kind of talked about Department of Player Safety ad nauseum a few episodes back and their inconsistency in things. But what happens if he would have broke that kid's jaw and that kid would have missed 8 weeks?
Rest of the season?
The rest of the, I mean, they're not going to make the playoffs, but what if it was a contender and he was a second line right wing 20-game scorer and he was going to miss the regular season? You can't differentiate the penalty based on who the penalty is inflicted on. The penalty and the punishment are on the player who inflicted the damage. So I don't think 5 games was enough because, first of all, he could have really hurt the kid.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need to really explain that any further. You could have fucking hurt the kid. You could have broken his jaw or worse. And I don't care that Morgan Reilly's a veteran. And honestly, like you said, I don't give a big fat rat's ass about the code, right? I don't care. And we're going to have Tom put in a little Instagram video that I found of other ways that you could think about celebrating an empty net goal.
Or scoring an empty net goal.
Well, yeah, that's right. Scoring an empty net goal.
Ridley Greig upset a lot of people when he took a slap shot into an empty net, and a lot of fans were like, I don't see what the problem is. You can score any way you want. So here's a few more ideas for his next empty netter. Number 1, stop up, let the defender catch up, and then put it in. It's just a sportsman way to do it. Give him a chance, you know. This is the pre-sell. You already know you're going to score. Celebrate early. Get it over with, right? For number 3, let's have a little fun. 5-ball, corner pocket. There's nothing in the rules that you can't do that. Now, personally, I love number 4. Sit down on that puck and ride it into the net like a canoe. What a great way to score an empty netter. Since he's already scored the slap shot empty netter, what about the fake slap shot wrap around Mishy? I think that's a great way to get the fans fired up. And last but certainly not least, how about the moonwalk? I can't wait for these to hit the highlight reels, guys.
But the bottom line was, this was so far out of line. And I don't care that he's a nice guy. He could have, and he intended to injure him. And you can say he aimed for the shoulder. I think, I can't remember which NHL players are. That's happy horseshit, kids. You aim for the shoulder, aim for the head. Why the fuck are you doing it in the first place?
Yeah.
You're not Dale Hunter.
That's yeah. And Dale Hunter, now granted, he injured Pierre Turgeon. The circumstances were a little bit different. But if memory, I mean, it was a long time ago. I mean, I was pretty young. But if memory serves correct, Pierre Turgeon missed the remainder of the playoffs that year for the Islanders, who had just won that series. And he got 21 games. So, you know, Eddie, I think I'll close on saying that the hit was ridiculous. It never should have happened. And like my buddy Ryan, the hockey guy, says, Ryan Wallace, host of the pre and post game show, he doesn't think Ridley Greig learned anything. Like no lessons were taught, you know. So no. I tend to agree with that, you know, it was a stupid hit. It was unwarranted. And, you know, if there's some karma in the world, the Leafs will miss the playoffs.
Yes.
Because they missed Morgan Reilly for these. They won last night. In fact,
but their power play should go 0 for 30 in the next 4 games.
Yeah.
Right? And they should miss the playoffs by 1 point. And then we have our favorite former Golden Knight, current semi sort of Toronto Maple Leaf, Ryan Reeves, chirping in. And I mean, I kind of understood his comment, but he got railed for it.
And right? I think rightfully so.
I mean, I don't remember exactly what he said. Maybe you got more, you can sort of fill in that blank a little bit. But there's a great difference of opinion about, you know, the code.
Yeah, I'm in the process of pulling it up. By the way, he got lit up last night by Nathan Walker, who's a 5'9" kid from Australia. So he got knocked around. But Reeves basically said, and I quote, "If you rewind to when I came into the league, he's probably still laying on the ice."
Oh, yeah. There you go.
I thought Morgan Reilly's response was appropriate. I don't see how a kid that young thinks it's appropriate to do something like that. Here's why a kid that young thinks it's appropriate to do that. Because he just scored a game-clinching goal against their rival, the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's why he felt it was appropriate. And I like Ryan. I always enjoyed chatting with him when he was here, but it's not the same era. You know, we've got guys scoring Michigan goals in a league that is so craving for personalities. You can't gatekeep. And when a guy shows personality, all of a sudden, oh, well, he's in the wrong for showing. The kid from Detroit who scored the winning goal the other night, who danced like a flamingo on the ice.
That was the Griddy. What are you talking about?
For Wallman again with room. Slap shot. Scored!
Oh, boy.
Jake Wallman! The Griddy! The Sully! Red Wings win it 5-4!
I don't know what it is. I'm in my mid-40s. I don't know what the Griddy is.
All right.
But
all right.
It was fantastic. And the smile to the fans.
And the kids on Kids Day.
Yes. Yep. Go out, have fun, score goals. I got no problem with it. No problem with that at all.
I like Ryan Reeves a lot. I've been watching a lot of hockey, and sometimes we're pretty critical of broadcasters, other teams' broadcasters, incredibly homers and things like that. And we're kind of blessed to have the announcing duo. But my favorite Ryan Reeves story was in year 2 or whatever it was, whenever he would do the pregame interview with Allie, or even a drive-by, it would be a water bottle shot, right? And it got to be so repetitive and fun, and that I think toward the end, she got an umbrella, and like she knew it was coming, right? It was just a daily thing, and that, I don't know. Ryan Reeves is such a great guy. He really he missed it this time.
Yeah.
He really missed it this time, and he got slaughtered for it. I mean, people were saying, dude, you're not out there fighting Bob Probert and Joey Kocur or Tony Twist and the other guy from St. Louis. And he came off really bad. But, speaking of rinkside announcers and stuff like that, we are about to be joined by a very, very special guest.
Hi, guys.
Look at that.
I'm glad I was able to get on here in time to listen to Chapman not know what the Griddy is, which is a little concerning. It's been around for a while, Chapman.
Right?
Yeah, listen, I know what the Running Man is. I don't know what the Griddy is.
I mean, isn't that something? He's in his maybe early 40s, and I'm going to hit a number that starts with a 6 pretty soon, and I know what the Griddy is.
Good for you.
The worst thing is I have a 16-year-old who probably does the Griddy, and I don't even know what it is.
It's probably good because we don't want to see you hitting the Griddy on the dance floor anyway. I'm kidding.
No, you know as well as anyone that I would do it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Ashali Vise, the current and, according to Chap and I, most bestest ringside reporter that the Golden Knights have had in their 7 years. Also a 2-time Stanley Cup covering journalist, reporter. Ash, we appreciate this. Before we really jump into it, I just want to tell you thank you for the kindness that you showed me when we were in New York and Detroit. And, it was just you and I in Detroit, and I just had my one little question, and I just appreciate you being, let's just say, nicer perhaps than your predecessors.
Oh, no, anything for you guys. Anything for you guys. I was glad to see both of you made the trip. That's fun. It's always nice when the media is able to travel with us, and a heck of a trip to choose.
Yes.
Yeah,
New York. I'm bummed we ended up going to the Broadway show, so we didn't get to meet up at that steakhouse. How was dinner?
Yeah, you missed a good one.
I missed out. No doubt. I don't doubt that for a second.
Well, it's an annual trip and an annual dinner. So we're going to reserve your time for 2025 now.
Perfect. All right.
And
sounds good.
Hopefully the schedule gods will give us a solid day or two off in New York like they have the last couple of years. And just be prepared to be amazed by the steak.
And the
I'm
shrimp.
ready. Looking forward to it.
And the shrimp.
Can't forget the shrimp. Can't forget the shrimp.
I want to talk about your incredible range of skills
as
exhibited in the recent game against Minnesota.
Okay.
How do you go from interviewing Alex Pietrangelo, who is a pretty straightforward, down the line guy, to Little John?
Little John's the man. I'll say that much. A lot of people around the organization have had a chance to talk to him and interact with him a lot. I unfortunately had not. I met him for the first time right before that interview. But I think the biggest thing is just have fun when you can. Anytime there's an opportunity for fun to present itself, you want to jump on it. Even in the interview with Pietrangelo, at some point in it, wanted to talk to him about the way Alec Martinez was chirping him. So we got that in by the end of the interview. So I would say just that, trying to get fun in anytime we can. I mean, sometimes you have to be straightforward. You don't want to take away from what a big accomplishment that is from Alex Pietrangelo playing 1,000 games. But there's always time to have fun. Darren Millard, actually, Chapman, I'm sure you may have heard this, but he obviously someone I look up to very much, a big mentor of mine, as well as a good friend of mine. But he says that in every interview, he wants at least one chance to smile. And that's a mark of a good interview. So that's something we keep in mind. But Little John's the man, isn't he?
Well, first of all, I think that's great advice from Darren, because, we do this because we love the sport and we do it for fun, right? Like, if we're not having fun with what we're doing, why are we doing it?
Exactly.
But like the other thing that I kind of, and I made the point the other day on the Insider Show, Little John, of course, performed at the Super Bowl, and it blew up in Golden Knights universe that he was wearing his Golden Knights Stanley Cup championship ring. And I made the case that at that moment, the Golden Knights became part of pop culture. Like, they transcended the sport and they became part of pop culture. But you have 2 rings, as we mentioned. You've been around Alex Pietrangelo a long time. You were with him in St. Louis when he won that ring. And I think if you ever leave Vegas, Pietrangelo and Barbashev, they've got to go wherever you go so they can get a few more, I think.
Yeah, it's been really fun. Those are 2 guys. I mean, you guys know we're lucky to cover a lot of really great people, not just athletes. But those are 2 in particular that really are just great people. And I mean, I think that when Ivan Barbashev came over, I'm not saying that players have a hand in who comes over, but, the team definitely respects the opinions of Alex Pietrangelo, and Alex Pietrangelo would say Ivan Barbashev's a team guy. So I don't think it's a coincidence that, those are 2 guys from that team that made the jump over to Vegas, over to the good side. But it's something really special to cover the best moments of people's lives, quite literally. So it definitely kind of creates a bond and an appreciation and an understanding between you and the athlete that you're covering. And to be able to do it twice with both of them, like, just people you couldn't be happier for. And to see Alex Pietrangelo hit this milestone was unbelievable. You hear people call him a family man, and that's an accurate statement, but it doesn't really, do it justice. He's someone who is a hockey player, loves the game. If he didn't love the game, we wouldn't see the success that he's had and the leadership that he has, and, the things he does that makes him an absolute pro day in and day out, on and off the ice. But he also has the correct view of the world that that's just a very small part of, who he is. Being a husband and a father comes first. So to see it all play out, to see his kids out there on the ice with him, especially after the last year and a half his family's had, was so special. How
different is he from when you first met him in St. Louis to now, besides being X number of years older?
He's not. And that's not to sound cliche. It's because it's the truth. It's actually, so I started as an intern in St. Louis. I was 21, I believe, at the time. And he was the first professional athlete I ever met, first hockey player I ever met. I met him the first day, which is a small world. Had no idea, obviously, at that point, how long I would end up covering him. I didn't know at that point if I was ever going to end up being able to be a reporter. Like, I was, again, just, starting at the very bottom. And I met him on my first day because they were shooting a photo shoot. They were in the Winter Classic that year. So they were shooting a photo shoot with their Winter Classic jerseys. So the digital coordinator at the time, I was working with, introduced me to him, and he remembered my name from that day forward. He was the captain there at the time. That was his first year as captain. But it's a weird full circle thing. He's the first NHL player I ever met. And now I've covered, 2 cups, and I've met all these other, athletes along the way. So that part of it kind of feels full circle, but he genuinely hasn't changed. Now, he and his wife did not have kids at that point.
Wow.
So that part has changed. That part has changed. Yeah. Wow. I remember when they won the cup in St. Louis, they had the triplets, but they were very small. And we covered his cup day in Toronto, and the triplets were, teeny-tiny babies in the cup the first time. So that's something also that was really special to him, is that this time around they, had an idea of what was going on, and they actually, they're going to, like, his sons are going to remember skating out on the ice with them the way that they did. So it's really cool. But I guess that's a long way to go about saying he hasn't changed. He's still, treats everyone like they're someone. He doesn't, it's hard, as you guys know, as great as our players are with media, there are times that it's media, right? And it's,
Yep.
He's someone who's really good about treating you like a person. He knows that you have a job to do. He, treats you like a person, not just like a reporter.
Yeah, I've noticed that about him. He's always been very cordial, very friendly, very straightforward too, which I like. But you mentioned something. I want to ask you about it, because you're originally from Dallas, right? I think we had the conversation. You went to University of Arkansas, and then you got this intern. Yeah, Suey, right? Is that how you say
it? Oh yeah, Woo Pig Suey all day long.
So then you go to St. Louis as an intern, and you weren't sure if you were going to make it or not. What was the moment when you realized that, like, there's players and they have moments where they're like, hey, you know what? Like for William Karlsson, I would imagine it's when he scored his first goal as a Golden Knight. It was an overtime winner, actually against the St. Louis Blues. How I know that, I don't know, but I remember that. So for him, that might have been his, hey, you know what? I've arrived in Vegas moment. For you, what was the moment that you knew that you arrived and this was something you were going to do long term?
Oh, I wouldn't say I've arrived still, that's for sure. But honestly, it's a good question that you kind of touched on. My way, just, I don't know, this is probably boring for a lot of people, but I started as an intern, did a lot of writing, a lot of video editing. And then my primary role in St. Louis, my first couple of years, was doing all behind the scenes shooting, editing, being a video producer, and then kind of slowly just inserted myself on camera and was like, hey guys, you want to use this here and there? And then, I was able to do more and more. I will say, going to the bubble, I went to the bubble in Edmonton with the team when I was with St. Louis, and that gave me a real opportunity to meet a lot of people. It was a really good opportunity. Broadcasters weren't there for, I don't think, any team. Most teams got to send 2 people. Most teams chose video and PR. St. Louis happened to choose video and social. And they said, she can do on-camera stuff too. I had done on-camera stuff for them through the cup run. So they said maybe that'll be a way to kind of have a reporter and someone who can shoot when we're there. So that wasn't a moment that made me feel like I made it, but it was a moment that made me feel like I was valued, and it was an opportunity to get a lot of reps in, and it was a really good opportunity. It was a scary opportunity because you didn't know how long you were going to be stuck in the bubble, not able to do anything or go anywhere. But I would say, honestly, also, like, the position that I'm in right now is the position that I dreamed of having. Being part of a broadcast day in, day out was my dream role. So I definitely don't feel like I have made it or arrived, and I feel like I have a lot to get better at and to grow at every single day. But this is my dream job. So once I got here, honestly, I don't know.
No, I think it works.
What would you say is your favorite on-camera moment? And what would you say is maybe the dream interview sounds sort of kitschy, but if you could interview one, and we'll say living, one current, it doesn't necessarily have to be an athlete. Who'd be the one you'd want to get on camera, and who is your favorite that you've had so far in all your career?
So I'll have to think about favorite on-camera moment for sure. That one might take a little thinking. But I've always, I grew up a huge New York Yankees fan. Don't come at me.
Oh,
huge Derek Jeter fan.
I'm a Yankee guy. We're in.
he always, like, I remember when I was in college and stuff, that was like my bucket list thing. Like, oh, I want to get an interview with Derek Jeter sometime before I die. So I think that still stands. He is someone, like, I would be starstruck. Like, that's you're supposed to be professional. I would be, he's like the one that would be difficult to, not be just bursting at the seams inside. And hopefully I wouldn't show it. And I would be nervous as I'll get out. But Derek Jeter would be the one. Favorite, it's hard to say favorite on camera moment. I mean, this sounds cheesy, but anytime it's a big win or like an overtime win and you have the chance to talk to someone immediately after, like, you guys know, a lot of times we're hanging around the locker room waiting to go inside, but when you get to talk to someone just immediately, that's so exciting. That's so fun.
Who was the first person you talked to? Was, on June 13th, everything was sort of disoriented for us. They left us upstairs. There was no locker room. We had to wait to go on the ice. I don't even recall. Did you get somebody right after the win?
So they let us on the ice a little bit. We came on with the family, so we weren't on the ice as early because that was a national broadcast. TNT was covering that game. So we were on a little bit after them, but we did go around with the camera and talk to some guys. Shea Theodore was the first person I talked to. I really enjoyed talking to Jack Eichel right after that game, on the ice there, just the journey it had been for him. And that's, something that he doesn't like to talk about or make a big deal out of. But in that moment, he was completely willing to be like, yeah, all of that, this is so much sweeter because of everything I went through. In Buffalo, the surgery, the doubters, the haters, all of it that he's dealt with over his career. So that was a big one for sure. That might be one of my favorite interviews.
Now, one thing, and unfortunately in the press box, I don't get to watch a lot of your, but when I'm home and the team is on the road, obviously we catch a lot of your interviews with Bruce or, your walk-off interviews, but sometimes it's not so easy, right? Because maybe it's a night like the other night where they don't play very well and they lose a game to the Wild, or maybe a guy has a bad night. So, like, how do you approach that? Because I know sometimes when you walk in the locker room, just from our perspective, that you can tell when guys are in a bad mood and you can tell when Bruce is in a bad mood. But I have the option to not ask a question. You don't. So how do you approach that when you know that whoever you're talking to is not going to really want to talk to you?
I will be honest. Sometimes something I've been trying to work on myself recently is not going in the room with as much of a preconceived notion about how I think they're going to react. Like, I don't want to project how I viewed the game onto them. That doesn't mean I can't ask questions about what we saw. But there are times where I feel like I'll go in and kind of have a somber, like, oh, where did things go wrong? But their attitude is actually like, oh, well, that's going to happen. We'll shelf that one and move on. And it's almost a somewhat positive reaction. And sometimes I'm not expecting that when it's the case. And then last game, was an example of a time that they were very unhappy, so you don't always know what you're walking into. So I try not to assume what the mood is going to be solely based on the result. Sometimes it's obvious, right? We knew they were going to be frustrated after last game. It's going to be frustrating. If it's a rivalry game, like, the mood would have been, can you imagine, like, if they would have lost that game against Edmonton, that mood would have been obviously not a good one, right? So that's one thing, is trying to just let them tell us how the game was and how they feel about it, instead of maybe projecting some of those things. I do try to find a balance. I want to ask the things that fans want to know for sure, but I do try to do it in an empathetic way. I try to think of it that way. I try to think about one of the least fun parts of my job, in my opinion, is talking to someone that I know on a personal level, because, we talk to them frequently. It's like, I think about if I just had a terrible day at work and someone's immediately like, why'd you do that? What went wrong? Why did that happen? Like, I definitely put myself in their shoes. So that's, in terms of mentally, I approach it that way. But they're also pros, and they know that we have to ask questions about what happened. So that's, something that I know you guys know too. That's something that comes, the longer you cover people, the more they understand it. And the more sometimes maybe a guy is, fired up or not nice. And sometimes they then afterwards say, like, sorry, mad or frustrated or whatever it might be.
I think
we have to keep in mind too, though, that we want emotion in our answers, right? So
Yeah.
you don't want to bait someone into that. That's for sure. But you do want emotion in your answers too. So something else I have to keep in mind.
To bring it around, I guess the best example of that actually happened a couple of nights ago.
Yeah.
When we got in, Petrangelo was there. And the first question, wow, we were just standing there like, we lost. That's what I'm going to remember. And I'm like, oh, didn't think that would have been the first thought for the evening.
Yeah,
right.
I agree. I completely agree. And that's part of why I said something I need to work on. Like I thought, let's talk about his way. But it speaks to him that he was not in the mood to talk about an individual accomplishment at that time, which does speak to him for sure. But I'm with you. It catches me off guard sometimes too. That's why I say sometimes it's better. And then we'll take the interview from there. However their tone is, from the get-go, that gives us kind of a springboard. Not that we have to match that tone. Not that means that we can't ask more difficult questions. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means that sometimes I think to really get the fans into them, I do feel like that's my job, is to let the fans know what the players are thinking. So I don't always think it's my job to make the player explain why they made a play the way they played, or like, why'd you mess up? It's not necessarily that. I think it should be more, all right, here's your view inside the mind of a player. Here's how they viewed that play. Here's how they feel about it. It gives you an idea of what the vibe in the room is as well. And I think that's more important than a lot of the X's and O's.
Now, how much of your approach is based upon, I mean, you're around these guys basically 250 nights a year or whatever. You're constantly, whether there's no game, you're around them at practice. So how much of your approach and the questions you ask is based upon how well you know players' specific personality?
It is for sure. Because again, you are not trying to take the easy route. You're not trying to you're not trying to only throw softballs by any means, but you also know you get a gauge for what certain players will and won't react well to. And again, it's my job to get the most out of them as I can, or as I believe I can. Sometimes it's more about that than it is just about, let me ask the hard question so that it gets clipped and put on Twitter later. Just to be that person, it definitely, example, this, this doesn't really relate to anything you would do post game, but today we did one of our credit one-on-one interviews, which are typically get to know you interviews that mix in some hockey as well, depending. Well, today it was William Karlsson, and I know that William Karlsson is so much more open when you're not talking about hockey, which he has to talk about every single day, right?
Yes.
So
talk soccer with him.
Yeah, that's an example. Or I'll tailor it this way. Like if I know it's a guy who really doesn't like to talk about himself and I have a decent amount of time to prepare what my questions are going to be, I will put more thought into how I ask them. How can I get them to talk about themselves without straight up saying, why are you playing well? Because they probably won't answer that. So I'll think of other ways around it. Like what feels different for you right now than 10 games ago. And then maybe that'll give us some insight into why they're playing better right now. Things like that, if that makes sense, which I guess there's a lot of players who don't like to talk about themselves. But definitely, you do tailor your questions based on the player's personality. Now, that's not to say that you can't walk up to, any, like Lil Jon, I didn't know how that was going to go. I knew he was a big personality, but who knows? Didn't know what direction that was going to go. So you can go in blind for sure.
He's a lot smaller than I think he looks on television.
Yeah. He's tiny.
I don't know. He wasn't that small.
So is Steve Aoki by.
Oh yeah. I have not had the chance to meet him. Yeah.
So speaking of insights, Chris and I have had the opportunity to talk to Paul Cotter a bunch. He did one of the episodes with us. And
see, that's a good example. That's a guy you can ask him just about anything. So that's great.
So he's a funny cat. He's the youngest guy. He takes a lot of beating and ribbing in the room. We know that. I want the inside scoop because all the other guys are pretty professional when we walk in the room. They're pretty guarded. I mean, that scene on the eve of the Super Bowl, having Pat McAfee in the room was the loosest we saw the room, in next to forever. who's the secret funny guy in the room that we don't get a chance to really see because when we walk in, they put on Mr. Media training face?
Well, I don't know if this is going to be that big of a secret to you, but definitely Alec Martinez. I don't know how much you see that, but for sure, he's doing stuff behind the scenes on maybe not a daily basis, but close.
Yeah, he has
tricks up his sleeve often, not necessarily pranks, but jokes. Sometimes I think they manifest as pranks, but pranks, jokes, making signs for people, bringing in props to, give someone a hard time. I would say him for sure. William Karlsson, and again, I just mentioned this, but he's a sneaky, funny guy for sure. So much so that sometimes I get a little nervous when I am interviewing him on camera sometimes because I'm like, am I going to be able to pick up on his wit fast enough? Because sometimes I don't know. Sometimes it takes me a second. Who else would be sneaky funny? A lot of them are, Marchie's Marchie. Who I think is quiet, but gives his teammates a hard time is Chandler Stevenson.
He does seem very quiet.
Yeah, that's what I would not have expected. Nick
Chandler
Waugh,
Stevenson.
I could totally see because I picked up a little bit of the Nick Waugh chirping in New York when he was giving me a hard time for wearing my Jets toque.
Yeah,
and he says, "Oh, you got a lot of courage wearing that toque," and I'm like, "I'm in New Jersey. The Jets play like 10 minutes up the street."
Yeah,
but
yeah.
And then the banter between him and Paul Cotter is. Like, these are things that fans don't really get to see.
Yeah.
And we wish they could.
Yeah. Like, it's so great. Now, there's so many cool things that like, you've gotten to do. And one of the really cool things I remember is you and Brett Howden. You guys were at a coffee shop in New York, and you guys were just chatting about, him living in New York. And, you've really had the opportunity to do some really interesting things. But one of the things that has always fascinated me, and I've always wanted to get an insight into, is what the plane rides are like. And I want to ask you about a specific plane ride. It's not like the 86 Mets where they trashed the plane or anything like that. But after they beat Florida in Game 4 to come back to Vegas, up 3-1, what was the mood like on the plane? Because was it confidence or was there nervous energy? Like, I would imagine coming back, winning that 4th game and being up 3-1 in the series must have been pretty incredible.
You know what Mark Stone said to the hotel, right?
No.
So
we're not coming back. Again?
Yeah, we're not. He said, the woman said, all right, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And he said, no chance, in a different way. I don't know.
It's funny because Sean Burke said to me, he wasn't packing again. He's like, I'm done.
Yeah. So I will say that those plane rides are a little bit different in the sense that for a lot of games, we're flying out immediately after the game. So those have, like, right after a win, there's obviously a certain energy. Right after a loss, there's a certain energy because it's more immediate. On that plane ride back, we didn't fly back till the next day because it was such a long flight. There was definitely looseness there. We sit at the back, the players sit in the middle. And you definitely hear there's poker being played. You hear the reactions to the games. That plane ride in particular was extremely loose. Guys were giving each other a hard time. Without divulging too much, there was a moment where one player got on the intercom and said something to the rest of the plane to chirp another guy.
Nice.
So and I thought that's maybe where you were going with that. So that was for sure the most loose plane ride, I would say, so much so that they were taking the jokes to the intercom.
Now, who's the best poker player on the team?
I actually don't know because I know that it was Phil Kessel.
Yeah,
well, that's not. I'd believe that.
Yeah. So, Jonathan Marchessault, Jack Eichel, and Braden McNabb. Now I think it's poker. It actually might not be poker. It's a card game though. It's those three, Phil Kessel was back there last year. I honestly don't recall who's taken that seat. I think it might kind of be a rotating cast, but I don't want to misspeak on that. I might be wrong. Now, there are guys who play cards further up as well, but I'm just not able to have a direct sight line to these guys. It's impressive, though. Like, if it's a 5-hour flight, they're doing it the whole flight. Like, guys are interacting and doing that stuff the whole flight. I'm scrolling my phone. People are dozing off. They play the entire time.
Well, I can tell you that on my flight back from Florida after Game 4 was also the next day, and there was about 20 drunken Golden Knights fans, and it was almost like a soccer hooligan flight where the poor flight attendants couldn't keep people in check, and they were fully. I don't know if they went from the game, and I don't know if you can party in that part of Florida all night. But
have you ever heard of Elbow Room?
Yeah, we did elbow. Yeah, we did Elbow Room when we had another big steak dinner at the hotel nearby. And then everybody hit the Elbow Room. But yeah, the Golden Knights fans were loud and proud and in need of a shower, I would say, on my flight back from Florida after Game 4.
I feel like that's a lot of flights to Vegas. People just ready to. It's funny sometimes flying into Vegas when you're just coming home from something, and everyone next to you is just ready to party. They're going on their vacation.
Have you been on that's why I like flying out, because everyone is knocked out. They're
tired. Yeah. As long as you don't. As long as you don't have anyone sick next to you.
Yeah. I love it when they clap when we get ready. When they land, it's like And I'm thinking all I want to do is get home to my cat. Right. I just get in my Uber, go home.
Hey, that sounds like you have a reason to clap then. You're getting closer to getting home to the cat.
Yeah, but those.
Yes, see, now my tradition is every time I get off the plane, my first stop is In-N-Out Burger. Don't know how it started or why, but there's 3 of them on my way home now, so I can pick and choose which one I want. But
nice.
Got home from New York a couple weeks ago. First stop, In-N-Out. I walk in the door. My wife's like, "You didn't get me any?" I'm like, "Well, it's 2:30 in the afternoon. I just assumed you already ate." So.
Classic. You got to at least offer up the animal style fries.
You know what? She likes the burger, not the fries animal style. So,
okay.
Ashley, we don't want to get you in trouble, but I feel like somebody has forgotten to text me that you're supposed to be at a meeting pretty soon.
Oh, maybe here soon. Yeah, I was gonna hop on a little late.
Okay, I don't want to get you in a pickle. Chris, you got one more question?
Good.
Oh, okay, good. Because we have lots of stuff we want to know. I want to know. I know you won't tell me who jumped on the intercom.
I honestly don't remember. I just remember I said that, but I honestly just remember
what was the
intercom chirping. I don't even remember. It was just I don't even remember. They were just having a good time, taking over the plane.
You mentioned Phil Kessel, and we've had a discussion, and it sounds like he potentially may have a landing spot in the Pacific Northwest. Don't know if that's done deal yet, but it sounds like there's definitely some smoke coming from the fire there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a goofy question, but me and Ryan had a discussion yesterday, and I'm going to ask you, assuming he signs with Vancouver and he plays right away, in your opinion, is the streak still alive?
Why not?
It's the first game he's eligible to play in.
Yeah, that's right. So he would keep it going, right?
I mean, what if he was hurt? What if he was hurt and not in a lineup? The streak starts when he gets on the ice.
So many people think that it's not going to be touched anyways, right? So
he just may as well keep going, right?
Why not?
I mean, it was pretty cool because when Patrick Marleau broke the games record, he did that in Vegas, but it was kind of the negative side of the COVID thing was, or one of the negative sides, for the hockey standpoint, was there really weren't a lot of people in the building to see it, because I think it was either when there were no fans allowed in the building, which was surreal.
Yeah.
I remember going to a Raider game and being able to hear the players yelling from the sidelines because the cavernous building was completely empty. But he did it in front of almost no fans. But when Phil Kessel did it, there was fanfare and it was kind of cool. I kind of feel like maybe Patrick Marleau got robbed a little bit, but still cool thing that Vegas has been part of 2 huge, and San Jose. I guess, as well, has been
Yeah.
part of two absolutely monumental moments in NHL history, which is really cool.
Yeah. Vegas has been part of a lot in
Yeah,
general.
well, yeah.
It's about like it's crazy how they've come in and not only had the success that they've had, but the popularity that they've had. And I'll put even the people who, hate the organization and they're so annoying and whatever. Like, it's just, they're the cool kids in school that you either want to be like, or talk bad about, because
embrace it, right? Embrace being the bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. But the celebrities
good.
at the games, the star power, like, it's unreal. But yeah, to be for the organization, it was huge to be part of that last year. It was definitely, and that's something that really brought the room together last year. Phil Kessel had, was new to the team. So all of those celebrations, so was Bruce Cassidy. So all of those, celebrations surrounding that, I think really brought the team together. And you were talking about Alex Pietrangelo too, right? Is that the other big milestone you were referencing, or were you just talking about Patrick Marleau happening in Vegas?
Yeah, happened in Vegas.
And the stuff with no fans, it's interesting. We're looking back for the broadcast at some of Pietrangelo's biggest moments, and his first goal was a Golden Knight. There was no one in the stands. It's crazy to look back and see.
Coming from St. Louis, it must have been an enormous shell shock. I mean, I've been in Vegas 35 years. I've seen quite a bit. Do you have a favorite sort of memory as you jump from a fairly tame sort of a city like St. Louis into, oh my God, open the plane door and all hell has broken loose 360 degrees around me?
I don't know if there is a favorite moment, but I will say it still catches me off guard driving home from the airport when we land. If we land, let's say at 1 or 2 a.m. From a road trip, and we're landing and we look to the right or left, whichever direction we are at the moment, and the strip is there. And then I'm going home and I turn on Las Vegas Boulevard to get to the highway. Like, that never ceases to amaze me. And I don't think it's something I'll ever get used to in the best way possible. It honestly, the winters, it's, that's funny too. I think a lot of the adjustment, I realize when I go to places where it's cold in the winter, like really cold, not Vegas cold, like, I think, I don't
like
know how
Winnipeg
I ever did
cold?
this, and I don't think I ever want to do this again. Yes. Yes. So yeah, I don't know if there's a moment. The games, I had been to a game here before. If I hadn't, I would say, honestly, just being in the game atmosphere for the first time, it's crazy. It really is the best, not only in hockey, but in sports. Like, it blows everything out of the water. It makes you go to other arenas, and it makes it feel, I don't even know. I'll be on the bench getting ready for a warm up. Yeah. I'll be on the bench getting ready for a warm up interview in other cities. And I'm like, I can hear everything that's happening around me. This is weird, because when we're on the bench in Vegas, that warm up music is bumping. It is hard to hear. I feel like I'm screaming into the mic, sounding like a 10-year-old half the time, just so that the players can hear me. But yeah, I don't know if there's a moment, but all of it, I just love it. I still have not gotten, it still doesn't feel real in a lot of ways. So I don't know if there's one moment that stands out.
Now, just because I know we got to let you go, but you mentioned the atmosphere. But what's your, and I don't know if it's going to be St. Louis, and if it is, then pick another one. But what's your favorite arena that's not T-Mobile to do games?
Bell Center, Montreal. I just love that trip every year. The history that's in the building, the way players get up for it, the national anthem, the city itself is really cool. It just feels, the vibe is just so much different than any other city we visit. A lot of Canadian cities feel similar to American cities. Going to Montreal in a lot of ways feels like you're in Europe somewhere. I've never even been to Europe, so let me just say that was probably not a good thing to say. But what you assume some parts of Europe would be like the old Montreal area. For those reasons in particular, I would say Montreal is the other arena. Do you guys have a favorite based on where you've been?
Well, I'm biased.
Madison Square Garden.
No, I'm a Detroit. I'm a Detroit guy.
I forget about that. About that. You said Yankees fan, so that had me on the yeah.
Yeah.
Little Caesars is nice, but you probably like the Joe.
Well, I am dating myself, but I went to the first games at the Olympia Stadium.
Okay.
Where the upper tier was so steep that they put fence in front of it so people couldn't fall over into the lower bowl. It's the same sort of. It's modeled after the original Maple Leaf Garden and the Forum in Montreal. Those were the old school buildings where they're like this in the top. I mean, the Joe was fantastic because it was a filthy, rotten dump, and
I never made it there, and I regret that. I never. Had
it was
a chance.
gross. It was gross, and it didn't have a press box. They literally forgot to build the press box.
I feel like there are a few arenas like that where the press box is now basically the catwalk.
But Little Caesars is in my opinion, and it's incredibly biased, a wonderful tribute to an original 6 team, having the statues of Gordie Howe and Ted Lindsay, and having all that memorabilia and trivia on the concourse for the fans to see. And it's a great barn for hockey. So, and I get to see my dad. So that's an easy win.
That's the most important part, easily.
Yeah. Chat.
Yeah, for me, it should be the Prudential Center, but it's not. I love Madison Square Garden for a variety of reasons. I mean, my uncle was a huge Rangers fan growing up, and so he would take me to go see not only Ranger games, but we would go see wrestling and the Knicks and college basketball and just all sorts of really cool things at MSG. I love the idea of taking the train in and then just walking upstairs, and you're in the building. The food around the arena is pretty awesome. But I've been to a handful, but I'll be honest, I really like Winnipeg in the playoffs. I think the atmosphere in that building is really cool. The fact that it's a really small arena, I think it's the smallest.
Doesn't sound like it, though. Yeah, it is. Yeah, 14,000, I think.
Arizona out of the equation, and when they do the whiteout and they sing "O Canada," and I think it's the same girl every night who sings it, and she just sings the first line, and then she drops the mic, and the whole crowd sings along with her. Like, it's hard to not get goosebumps when you're in the rink for that. And look, they're a good team on top of it, and they've had some really good, tough series with the Golden Knights. So that rink is to me, it's a special place because it's the first Canadian city I had ever seen a game in, and I really liked it. I thought it was really cool. So because
it's in Darren Millard's, it's near Darren Millard's neck of the woods. That's the other reason.
Right? But then I just think it's cool. It's just a really cool experience to go there for a game like that. And there's definitely a little fun because I showed up at the rink one day for practice and I went to the wrong arena. And they were setting up for a Shania Twain concert that night.
You should have just stayed and hung out. I might have been tempted to do that if it was Shania. I
missed the morning skate at the practice rink, which is like 30 miles outside of town, it seemed like.
Classic Chapman.
Yes.
Well played. Ashley, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me.
I hope you had a little fun. One last question, and it's a one-word answer.
Oh, boy.
Cabernet or Chardonnay?
Cab all day.
Ooh, there we go.
That's actually my go-to. So
the
you picked a good question. That is
good for your heart too. Good for your heart.
Okay,
that's what I tell myself. That's what I tell myself.
All right, we're gonna let Ashley go. Thank you. We'll see you Saturday night for the game at 7:30. 7:30 against the Canes.
Thanks for the reminder.
And don't forget to leave extra early because the freeway is closed. Tropicana is closed. Everything is closed. But again, Ashley, thanks so much for taking the time. Thanks so much.
Sounds good. Bye, guys.
Take it easy. Bye.
Ashali Vise, ladies and gentlemen, Rinkside reporter for the Vegas Golden Knights. We got way more time than we expected with her.
Yeah.
It was awfully fun, I think.
Yeah, and you mentioned it early on. She's the bestest. She's my favorite. And look, it's not a knock on Allie or Stormy because I really liked talking to them and enjoyed my interactions with them. But I feel like we've gotten to know Ashley a bit more, and maybe it's because we're seasoned now a little bit more too. But I always enjoy, and she chirps, she gives it back, and I'll add the caveat that she's very, very talented and she's really, really good at what she does. And, I respect the hell out of her work and I always enjoy listening to her ask questions.
It was nice that she much like a lot of the players did the humble and said, I'm not sure I made it yet. Ashley, you made it because you're in the biggest entertainment city in the world, and you're right in the mix, right? You know, you weren't here when we became Vegas's team, but you're here now, and you know that it is Vegas's team, and you're an integral part of the broadcast. And I know I can speak for Chap that we're really honored that we got to spend more time than we expected with you, and you know, keep it kind of light. And I think, Chris, I think you and I are getting pretty good at having these special guest things going on. We're not stepping on each other too much, and
yeah,
you know, we don't reherse this, kids.
No,
we don't write down any questions. We just whatever it feels like coming up, we talk about. So I feel like we should probably just end it. I mean, we did what we needed to do. We'll get back to the hockey stuff. We'll probably do an extra episode, and we'll cover. Well, there wasn't much to cover on the Wild game other than the Pietrangelo thing, and we'll talk about that. But the next game is Saturday night, 7:30, puck drop against the visiting Carolina Hurricanes. And that's going to end episode 69. Thanks, as always, to Dr. John Pierce at agelessforever.net and the Las Vegas Advisor at www.lasvegasadvisor.com, your home for everything Las Vegas. For Chris Chapman, my name is Eddie Rivkin, and episode 69 is in the books. We are out of here. See you in a few days.